Here's the number one way you can become a dominant force in your field or in your business. So I want you to imagine that you're sitting in a room and there's 200 people in there. And in this room, you come to find out that everyone is just like you. There's 200 therapists, 200 doctors, 200 podcasters, 200 entrepreneurs, 200 coaches. Just imagine that you're sitting in this room and there's 200 people just like you. And in this room, you're sitting in it and you look up and you see this great big board. And on this board, it shows the rankings between the greatest people in this field and the worst people in this field. As you're sitting there, you're just seeing name after name being called on this board, right? So number one, it says Mr. Brown. Number two, it says Mr. Green. Number three, it says Mr. White. And you're just sitting there waiting for your name to be called to see how great these people have ranked you in your field. And as you're sitting there for hours after hours after hours, you finally see your name pop up on the board. But the thing is, you see it at 199. You're just sitting there like, yo, are you kidding me? Are you saying there's 198 people better than me and I'm only better than one other person in the room? How would that make you feel? How would that make you think about yourself, right? Someone saying that, hey, you're basically at the bottom of the pack, buddy. What would that make you think about yourself? Would your self-worth start to dwindle? Would you start to think lesser of yourself? What would be those thoughts that you would have? Now, I say this story because this is how Tom Brady was welcomed into the league back in 2000. Now, in this draft, there's a lot more other people, but he was drafted 199th. But we all know that Tom Brady ended up being better than everybody in that draft. And honestly, he became better than anyone that has ever been drafted because he's the greatest of all time. And I tell people it's tough for me to say that because I'm a Jets fan. And if you don't know about football, the New York Jets are the arch nemesis of the Patriots, which is where Tom Brady played for 20 years. So for 20 years, my team had to go through Tom Brady, and it was tough. It was tough, but that's neither here nor there. Tom Brady, one thing that made him the absolute best in his field was the exact same thing that's going to make you the best in your field, and that's being coachable. That is the number one thing that you can do to become the dominant force in your field or in your business. You have to be coachable and be willing to take on information that people are trying to give you, and then you have to apply it. So in this episode, I'm going to tell you guys the 5 things that you need to do in order to become coachable so that way you become the dominant force in your field. And me as a coach and as a therapist, I can attest to seeing these 5 things being things that I see from the clients that are killing it in their therapy and those who are still struggling. So take out a pen and paper and start to write these down. So number 1, the first attribute to being coachable is actually being humble. Even though you're great at your field, and I have to attest that I work with a lot of people that are experts in their field, and they honestly don't know that, which is why they come and see me, because I gotta show them that, hey, you actually do really, really great work. But the one thing about these guys is that they're humble. And what I mean by that is, even though they may have a PhD or maybe making hundreds of thousands or in some cases millions of dollars, even though they're doing really, really great, they still have the humbleness to come to me or some other coach and say, hey, I need help with this one thing. I need help with overcoming stress. I need help with building my confidence. I need help with overcoming things in my past that's been holding me back in my business, even though I'm doing great. These are things people are willing to come to me to get help from because they know that they need it and they know that it will help them. Another thing about this is that they actually are open to new information. They're open to new information. The things that I give in therapy, they may contradict everything that you've heard about mindset. One example would be this. People that are on Instagram, YouTube, podcasts like this, they may tell you that in order to have an ironclad mindset, you can't think negatively. Well, that's the biggest lie in the world because negative thoughts are so common and they're actually needed to keep you alive. So my job as a therapist and as a coach is not to try to make negative thoughts go away, but it's to try to get you to become more open to them, to allow them to be there and know that you don't actually have to fight them. But to learn that concept, you have to be open to it because it's radically different from everything else that you've heard. Now, one thing about confidence that is great, that separates people from being arrogant, it is this humbleness. It's them knowing that, hey, I am great at what I do, but I'm still open to learning and even listening to what you have to say. That is something that is needed for every person that's willing to be great and wanting to be great in their field. You have to be open to hearing the new information that the coach that you're working with is giving you. All right, number 2, and this one, I actually learned this, man, like years later. I wish I would have learned this in high school, but you have to be prepared. One of the greatest things about being coachable is that you show up prepared and ready to take action. In high school, when I was playing basketball, I only played basketball maybe half the year, if you will. And what I mean by that is I had the regular season, right? And then there was like AAU season. But outside of those 2 seasons, which accounts for about 6 months, I really didn't practice. And that was a great separator between me and some of my peers. They would practice basketball year round. And that's just something that I wasn't willing to do. And I didn't know it, but that was the thing that actually kept me from, let's say, going D1, maybe even going to the pros and all that other stuff, just simply because I wasn't prepared. There's a great story about Kobe, how he used to, in the off season, get up at 3 a.m., right? 3 a.m. Some of you guys may not even be going to bed until 3 a.m., but Kobe would get up at 3 a.m. He would go to the gym by 4 a.m. He would practice for a couple hours, come home, eat, rest, and then he'll go back to the gym just to do it all over again. And because he got up so early, he was able to do 3 workouts in a day when others in his field was only doing 1 workout. Now, I'm not the greatest at math, but I know that 3 is bigger than 1. And this guy was going to practice 3 times to every 1 time they were going to practice. Now, you take that and you combine it over a course of 7 days a week, right? 12 months in a year and 20 NBA seasons. You can start to see the gap that he was able to create between him and his peers. And that's how Kobe became Kobe. So something that you need to do is start to be prepared for your coaching sessions, for your work day, whatever it is that you do. Take an extra, I'm going to say just 10 minutes and prepare yourself to execute on what it is that you need to execute. There's been so many great quotes, one from Brian Tracy and another one from this book that I'm reading. It's called Success to Stress, I believe, or Stress to Success is one of those titles. And the lady talked about the same thing that Brian Tracy talked about. They said for every 1 minute that you put into preparing, right? So planning your day, it actually saves you about 9 to 10 minutes of execution. Now, again, I'm not a mathematician, I'm a therapist and I'm a coach, but I know that 1 is less than 10. See, I told you I wasn't great at math. 1 is less than 10. So if I take that 1 minute and I prepare my day, dude, it's going to save me so much time on the back end. And it's going to allow me to be more productive than some of my peers. And that, again, goes back to the Kobe and the his peers, right? So Kobe and let's just say D Wade or Carmelo and all these other guys. He just simply prepared. All right, number 3, one of the best ways to become coachable is to be engaged. Now, again, I've done sessions with, I can't begin to tell you, with web developers, lawyers, doctors, other therapists, coaches. Like, I've done a lot of therapy and coaching sessions. And I can tell you there's a big difference between the people that are very action oriented, right? So they're in the sessions, they're asking questions, they're taking notes, and then the people who don't. And what I see is that the people that are taking the notes, following up with the homework and all the other things, and even asking questions in the sessions, those people actually spend the less time with me because they're able to accomplish their goals a lot quicker. Now, the people that don't do that, they get this false sense of hope where, hey, I'm showing up to therapy, I'm showing up to the coaching sessions, things should be getting better. And I'm like, you may see slight improvements, but you're totally missing out on what you could be getting if you were just simply more engaged. And that's just a choice from some people that they make. I tell them, hey, to be coachable, to get the most out of these sessions, it's a 2-man game. It's a 2-man sport. And I love telling them, hey, you can think of this as a metaphorical car where you're in the driver's seat and I'm in the passenger seat. You have to tell me where it is that you're trying to go, and it's my job to give you the directions. Now, the question is, are you going to follow these directions? If I tell you to take north on 95 and you're still stuck on the sideline, right? You're still stuck on the shoulder. How helpful are you to your own life, right? Like, I'm giving you the help that I can, but how helpful are you in getting yourself to where you need to be? Not really that helpful, right? So that's something that people have to be aware of. How much am I preparing, but also how much am I engaging in my own personal development, self-development, professional development in order to get me to become that top 1% in my field. So you just got to be engaged. Number 4, you have to be action oriented. I read a great book called Mindset that I would suggest everybody read. It's by Carol Dweck. And she has this one part of the book where she talks about how some people who have a fixed mindset, they develop something called internal student syndrome. And what that means is that you just simply become a student just learning all these different things, but you never take action. That's a place that you don't want to be in. It's very similar to imposter syndrome, right? You kind of feel stuck, feel like you're not really able to take the action that you need to take. You think that everything that you've done up to this far has been a fluke, right? Like you just have a lot of self-doubt. And someone with internal student syndrome, they fear taking an action because it may fail. Well, that's life. I failed so many times, and that's why honestly I think that I'm really good at what I do. It's because I was able to not only fail and take action, but I was able to learn from those actions. I was able to learn from those failures. So that's something that you have to remember, but you can only do that if you're taking action. So to be coachable, it's not enough just to do what the coach asks, but there's so much that you need to do on your own in order to get you to become that top 1% in your field. Again, I love talking sports, and I feel like you guys can relate to this. Man, there's so many stories about quarterbacks, point guards, so the leaders of the team showing up first before everyone else does, and then leaving last after everyone else has left. Just recently in the NBA playoffs, LeBron James was showing up to the gym 5 hours before the game started. And he just did that just to simply work on his shot because honestly, this postseason, his shot really wasn't falling. But that's something that leaders do. That's what the top 1% do. So for you, are you taking action? Now, here's the thing. Without a plan, without you preparing, as I said before, it's going to be even tougher to take action. So the first phase is planning. It is preparing. Do that before you go out and take an action, and you actually see that it'll be easier to take that action to begin with. Number 5, the last one, the last attribute to being coachable is being consistent. You have to show up to your coaching sessions, your therapy sessions, your practices, hey, even showing up for yourself. You have to do that on a consistent basis. I've loved this quote from so many other people. They say that success is not owned, but it's rented. And rent is due every single day. It's not due on the 1st, not due on the 30th, but every single day you have to pay. How are you paying for your success? What actions are you taking? How consistent are you? If you struggle with that, I know for a fact that you're not the top 1% in your field, or I could just simply say you're not unlocking your true potential. That is something that you have to realize and accept. Now, with being consistent, sometimes people run into the error of choosing intensity over consistency. And what do I mean by that is, well, someone who's never worked out or someone who's taken a year off of working out and they're not an athlete, they may say, hey, I'm going to go to the gym every day this week for 2 hours. And will they be able to do that? Maybe. Willpower is something that's strong. But will they be able to do that once week 6 comes? I doubt it, right? I doubt it. What they need to do is actually tell themselves, hey, I need to start off small by deciding to go to the gym, let's say 3 times or 4 times a week for maybe 30 minutes or maybe an hour and see how that goes. See if they can prepare themselves and start to get into the act of putting on their shoes after work, after a long day, and going to the gym rather than just saying, hey, I'm going to go hard for 7 days for 2 hours each day. That's very hard to do. It's very hard to stay consistent. And it starts to kind of be almost like demoralizing when you see that 3 weeks have gone by and you haven't walked into the gym after starting off so strong. So those are the 5 things that you need to remember in order to stay coachable and to become the number 1 dominant force in your field. This is Coach Wells. Thank you for checking out the podcast. Please like, comment, and subscribe to it so that you can get more information like this. All right, guys. Later.